Welcome to Podcast for the Recently Released Schools and Geeks. I'm your host, Louis Stardust.
And I'm your co-host, Joe Matissa.
And today, we have a third member joining the party.
Who is that third member joining the party?
Well, if you're on YouTube, podcastforrecently.com, ASMR, you know that we have somebody special here in the studio. She's not up here yet. Hold on. Come on. Up. Why are you being shy? She's okay. She'll come in at some point. Anyways, she's a very shy lady. Oh, there she is. Oh. Are you going to say hi? Can you give me a high five? Can you hear her eating in the mic? When we first came back, I told y'all that we got a new dog. Her name is Ouija. This is her. I don't know if you could see her correctly. And she is our
I could zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, she's our super sweet new pupper. And we found her outside of our house, and now she lives here. And we are her home.
So now we have dogs on the show.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get her own microphone and headset and everything soon.
Could you give me a high five? Oh, kiss. That's so nice. You want to show people how smart you are? No, you just want to lick my hand? Okay. Yes. So she's a very cute lab German Shepherd pit bull mix with some chow chow, apparently. And she's
chow chow.
Very what's the word? She'll do anything for food. And that's all I have to say about this dog. But she's very cute. And I sometimes post her on our Instagram stories and stuff, so if you want to check us out there, we're Pod for the Recently Released. And that is all I have to contribute to today's episode.
All right. Well, today we're going to be going over a few things. We're going to continue with WandaVision. We're going to continue with a new one called Earwig and the Witch. It's a movie. What is it?
Studio Ghibli movie.
It's a Studio Ghibli movie?
Yes.
And a movie called Porno. So that's the thing.
It's just real quick, if you were like, hey, I'm interested in this movie called Porno, I'm going to Google porno movie to see like what the IMDb thing is or something. Probably write like horror movie or like horror comedy, because I just Googled porno movie and that was not my desired result.
Not your desired result
No.
at all. It definitely throws you off. You got to watch the trailer and stuff like that. It's on Shudder, right?
But we'll get into it, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll start out right away with WandaVision.
This is the thing I'm the most excited to talk about.
Yeah, WandaVision's been pretty interesting so far.
I saw a meme that was like, if you can't handle me at my episode 1, 2, 3, you don't deserve me at my episode 4, 5, 6, or whatever episode we're on now. Which makes sense because a lot of people were complaining about the earlier episodes of WandaVision, about that it was slow, and I get it. I did that with Cobra Kai. I can understand how it feels slow when you just want to get to the story. But I think that this show is kind of like a breath of fresh air from Marvel, because we've been so into this whole like Infinity War, Thanos bullshit for so long. Like it's been leading up to that. To have something that's kind of like cheeky and fun and really different than what they've done is really special. And I wish people were more receptive to it. Like would appreciate
Yeah, absolutely. You really got to give it a shot, especially because this show goes out of its way to be its own thing and really just kind of break the norms. Like it's shorter episodes, that's for sure, and a few episodes are totally just kind of strictly nostalgia. Don't really dive into the story yet or anything like that, and you have to kind of watch a few episodes before you kind of get things to go full circle and you to get a better understanding of what's going on.
I do love my sitcoms, and I think they do each decade pretty well. Like I don't have any complaints about that so far. I love the commercials and ads that they did for this.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
My favorite was the toaster. The
Yes.
Stark Industries toaster was so good.
And it's just like so well done, and obviously she's the one making the commercial, so it's just really funny. So yeah, I like it a lot. Let's talk about this episode though.
Okay, so in this episode, this is already after Rambo goes through the field and everything like that. And now this episode really breaks down a lot of the issues with her mind trying to control everything and people trying to kind of break free and let their subconscious kind of coming out a little bit. you see a lot of that in this episode. So, what do you have to say about this overall?
I really like everybody back at like the headquarters. First off, I think all those characters are fun. I like how they Monica Rambeau, her name, like this whole episode she was playing like detective hard, like she was investigating even like the clothes and all these very specific things that I thought was really cool, and I enjoyed seeing that because she just kind of got thrown into the mix and we don't really know much about her character yet on the show.
Yeah.
I love Kat Dennings. I said this already, so I'm enjoying her, and I'm loving the guy. I do not know his name.
Yeah.
In the show, but I like him. And
yeah. What is his name? He's the comedy actor.
Yeah. I'm awful at this. I wish I had it. I apologize, but he's fantastic. And I really like this episode. It was very like Full House-esque, which I guess is like a late 80s, 80-ish sitcom, it felt like, which is nice. Yeah. And then, not a little off topic, but not really, you do see like in the trailer for the next upcoming episodes that it looks like it's going to like a Modern Family style and like a 90s sitcom. So it's every episode seems to be like a different decade almost, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a really fun way to explore like what she's doing. But overall, like this episode was crazy. Fucking crazy. I am just really happy to have Vision in general because he's like one of my favorite like Marvel MCU characters. And so he has a lot of realization in this episode that there's something going on.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
And also, one thing I also like is that the kids are involved. And what's crazy is every time there's a major conflict with these kids, one thing that you see happen is the kids just age up. Mm-hmm. Like, almost as if one of the kids is doing it, or the kids, both of them together, are able to do it. They obviously have some kind of abilities. They don't they don't really specify anything right away.
No, they don't give you really any info.
And we will see if they'll go into more of the direction of the comics as far as with their kids. But it's really funny to see the kids go from like, obviously she had the kids in a matter of like a day practically. And then now the kids go at one moment from being little babies to bam,
10.
they're like a few years old and they got clothes on and everything like that, and they keep that general theme, and then all of a sudden something else happens. And the dog.
We could talk. Yeah, so they basically find this dog, and it's like this adorable like Full House moment of like, Mom, we found a dog, can we keep it? And they basically are like, you can't have a kid until you're 10. And then they just freaking look at each other and age up real fast. And again, you don't know if that's them or not, but I will say this is probably my favorite part of this episode. I know a lot of people like it for other reasons, but at that moment, like the neighbor, cannot remember her name, the neighbor that's really present in there,
Agnes,
she like doesn't even acknowledge that they aged up, and it's like, oh, kids are so funny, haha, and like doesn't even say anything about them. Like,
well, no, she hints about it because she goes,
but she doesn't,
like, kids, you can't control them, kind of deal. As if her powers are normal, like, so she can control the whole town there, but she can't control the way the kids are developing.
No, but at the same time, it's like she passes by it so nonchalantly. Like, in this world, it doesn't seem like superheroes are talked about because it's a traditional family sitcom. So for them to be so nonchalant, and he was like, wait, we've been hiding our powers, like, he picks that up, Vision picks that up, so I think that's interesting. But I also love before, when she goes, what does she say? Should I take that from the top? Like, she messes up her line or something?
Yeah, she basically kind of indicates to her right in front of Vision that, like, oh, I messed up on that line. Should I redo it? And you could tell Scarlett's a little like, what the fuck, man? And Vision's like, am I the only one who's noticing this? Because obviously Scarlett just plays it off like, oh, what? She was just talking about the kids and this and that. And obviously not. And Vision's like, no, I heard what she said, kind of deal. And he starts to get very confused on what's going on. And then we do have a scene where he's at work.
A question before that. So is that because she's becoming self-aware of what's going on, that she said, oh, should I take that from the top? Or is it like, because we haven't seen any moments like that before, other than her talking to like the neighbor about her being pregnant and stuff?
I'm guessing what happens is that
Because it rolls into what you're going to talk
it
about.
gets confusing for her to control everything.
Yeah.
And when there's a conflict that happens that's a little outside of her control, it breaks the framework of everything, and somebody slips.
Yeah.
And every time they indicate a slip, it's at the same time that there's some kind of conflict that really kind of throws you in that moment, and somebody somewhere you have to watch out for because something's going to happen.
Which makes sense because you're going to go into when he's at work, and that's like a very different perspective from what happened with her.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when he's at work, basically somebody makes a joke like he's a computer, blah, blah, blah. And they get an email on one of the computers or a message that comes in. It's an old computer, so it's weird that they say email and stuff like that. But it comes up as a sword email, and some things come through, and he ends up basically kind of tapping into one of the employees' like subconscious, and the guy freaks out because he's broken out of the construct for a minute, and he's losing his mind, looking for his phone, all this. He has no idea how long it's been, and that's when Vision kind of really is like, oh man, something's going on.
Yeah, some shit's going down, and then he taps him back. But when that email comes in, they all read it like together at once, like as if nothing happened.
Yeah,
and then
that
they
was
just go
weird.
back to work. So it's like it's very interesting. I want to see what's going on with that. But yeah, he has that moment of realization that obviously something's really going on here, and there's almost like a fight between them in the episode too, which is like pretty heated, rightfully so. We didn't even talk about when she dips out.
What do you mean?
Well, so the SWORD people try to send in like a little like helicopter thing, and then send in missiles.
Yeah, they basically try to bring a drone in.
Yeah.
You know, to communicate with her, and they sneak some missiles in to try to take her out. Like, I don't know why they would do that. Like, they haven't...
You're just going to piss her off knowing that
like, they
there's all the
haven't
hostages.
remembered any of the previous incidents with the Avengers and what Scarlet Witch is capable of to begin with, which they do recap
Yes,
on
they
at some point.
that is like another one of my favorite parts of this episode is I constantly am like, fucking the MCU, we're with Scarlet Witch, she's like the most powerful Avenger, and I freak out about this all the time, and they literally talk about this episode, and I think that's such an important thing to say. So I agree. Why would you send in missiles, especially if you're worried about also like these hostages in there? Maybe don't send missiles there.
So of course they do.
Yeah.
And she goes right through the barrier, and her accent comes back, her outfit from the Avengers comes back, the whole deal. She trashes it. She basically, you know, makes them turn their guns on the captain there, and tells them, like, hey, get out. This is my home. I ain't having it. You know, goes back in her bubble. And that's when everybody kind of realizes, like, yeah, it's all her the whole way through, and it's obviously going to be a lot harder to handle than they think. So they're going to have to start brainstorming a new plan of attack, I guess. And I would say that this episode was probably the most revealing stuff in an episode they've done so far. I mean, they really go into it with all these different things. And then obviously at the end, they have a really interesting surprise, which I don't know if you want to mention that or not. Spoiler alert.
I mean, we could talk about it because, well, not for nothing, when you put up the credits for this in like the last episode we talked about it literally has his face in there.
Yeah.
Like it's like Elizabeth Olsen, and then next top build is him. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's,
well, before that happens, though, they do have an incident where before they get in their little fight and everything like that, where the dog dies, and the kids basically are freaking out on the mom, like, well, you can bring things back to life. Bring the dog back to life. Meanwhile, she's trying to tell them, like, oh, you have to grieve. You have to let things go. You have to learn to get over stuff. And they're like, Mom, what are you talking about? Like, you know, our dad's apparently dead, but he's here kind of deal. Like insinuating to her that obviously she can bring things back to life. What are you doing?
Well, she's
bring
obviously,
the damn dog.
She's so fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And they're like hinting like, hey, bitch, we know what's up. But at that point, too, she has to tell him, like, not to age up, right? So I wonder what's going to happen with them in that, like, kind of temper tantrum kind of thing. Like, are they going to just do that? What is their actual powers? Like that, I'm really intrigued by. Also, when all this is over, like, are her kids just going to disappear? Are they going to come out with her? Like, is Vision going to go with her? Like, I don't know.
They do show a little bit in the trailer for the next thing where Vision runs and breaks through that barrier.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like being pulled back in, but he's still running out, and it looks like something is like keeping him somewhat alive. I don't know if it's going to be him like shutting down or him getting yanked back in and him actually being alive going through it. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll all see. But either way, right before that they get in this big fight and everything like that, then obviously things calm down because the doorbell rings at the end of the episode, and it's Evan Peters as
Pietro.
Quicksilver instead of the guy from the previous
Kick-Ass.
Avengers movie. Yeah, Kick-Ass guy.
Yeah.
So that was pretty neat, and I guess that like she was really confused about that. I don't know if she created him as well or what happens, but you know, so that's, I think, what's going to set Vision off to make him do that whole thing where he like bugs out and tries to leave and break that barrier and everything.
So his name is Aaron Taylor Johnson, the one that was the original Pietro in her MCU stuff. But I wonder like why they didn't choose to do him. Is it because it's like an alternate reality thing? Is it because they like killed him right away and there's no use for him to come back to the MCU? Like, I'm very curious as to why.
I think it could be potentially to bring back some of the X-Men characters.
Just to connect it to the
like as if they're opening the multiverse with a lot of these movies and shows they're doing, and where we're going to see a lot of ones from all the different movies we've seen just kind of hurled in together randomly, especially after Endgame. Like as if like things are back in the new thing and they're ready for the next phase, but the next phase is going to be all kind of weird and different because of previous events. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm looking up to see if they're saying why he wasn't in it.
I don't know, but either way, I would give this episode like a solid, I don't know, like an 8.5. This was a really good episode, and it's definitely worth watching, and it'll get you hype for where this episode and where future episodes could go.
It definitely leads a lot of what's it called? I guess like things to be unraveled. Like there's definitely more pieces to this puzzle, and they kind of touch on that this episode, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we'll go on to the next thing that we watched, and this was a movie this time. We watched this on HBO Max. This was Earwig and the Witch.
Hold on real quick.
What do you mean real quick?
Real quick. So we're trying to find new stuff to watch. But with there still being a global pandemic, no movie theaters are open. It's kind of like limited releases on streaming services. A lot of things are like getting delayed with filming. So we're trying our best to check out new things, but we would absolutely love if you have recommendations for things that you leave us, you know, those on our Instagram or Pod for the recently released on there. Because we're like struggling to find stuff to watch. The stuff we watch has been pretty good nonetheless, but it's not like there's new stuff all the time.
I think you're just saying that a lot, too. We do want to hear from you guys, absolutely. But I think you're panicking a little bit.
I'm not panicking.
This movie that we're about to talk about, we're not as happy with as we could have been.
And it's not even that, because I think it's fair to talk about things that we didn't love. But I think it's a slim pickings. Like there isn't a lot of new releases in 2021 because we're only 2 months into 2021. There isn't a lot of, you know, I don't know. There's just like obviously nothing in theaters, and things are going to like digital releases, which is fine, but there's not a lot of stuff out right now is what I'm trying to say. So we're going to review some stuff in 2020, which is totally fine. However, I would love new things. So if you have suggestions, that's my point at the end.
Absolutely. So with this movie, right, Earwig and the Witch, it starts out, and this girl, she's a pain in the ass, first off. This lady, this girl Earwig, it's like a flashback in the beginning, and she's a baby, and her mom's like trying to escape somebody, and she drops the kid off at an orphanage. And basically this kid's a brat, but she's kind of controlling and playing everybody, you know, from the kids to the adults. And she does get picked up by this really grumpy lady who is apparently a witch, and they're basically using her as a pair of hands at this house for her to do spells for money. And then they got this other guy who's like kind of more like the master of the house. He can control demons and stuff like that, and he kind of hides the whole time, but he's a guy to be feared. And it's her kind of trying to break through in the house and get some control over her living situation, and also kind of discover what's going on in general.
Yeah, it's not like it's like a happy, friendly, ooh, I got adopted by a witch. It's like the lady's kind of an ass. The dude is like super spooky and like keeps to himself. But she's definitely a little sassy child. Now, this is a Studio Ghibli film, which looks like absolutely none of their other animation. It doesn't look like that. And I think what they do similar to it is parts of the plot and like character dialogue feel like a Studio Ghibli film. There's like some overviews of her workshop where it's kind of like the way it's laid out and the food and stuff like reminds me of a traditional like Ghibli film and the way that looks. But because it's not like, because what is it, 3D animation? Oh my god, Weege, if my dog is crying, if you hear that, she's just likes attention. It's 3D, no?
Yeah, it's all CG and stuff like that. It's pretty different looking compared to, obviously, like she was saying, the previous movies that they've done. But it's like not great CGI. It's very outdated. It's not like over the top. It's not very impressive or anything like that. It does portray a lot of stuff that you would have seen, and expressions and low frame rate and still action that happens within a lot of animated films.
It makes me
feel
in
CG, but it's not the best.
It makes me feel like, you know, when you're a kid and you love Disney movies, that's Studio Ghibli, right? That's the equivalent to Disney, right? And then you go to like, I don't know, your local Walmart or something, and you see like the bootleg version of like Sleeping Beauty that's like $2 or something. And you like that movie for some reason because it's just good, but it's not Disney's Sleeping Beauty. It's just a Sleeping Beauty. That's how I feel about this. Like, it's just, you could tell it's somewhat related, but it's not fully what you want it to be.
Yeah.
So, I love witches. I love anything with like a witch story. I thought the music was fun. I thought, you know, the concept of an orphan going to a home and all that. I like that. There's a talking cat. But it just didn't hit all the marks for me, and I think the animation drew me out of it a lot. It's not bad. She's fine. Joe is very upset that our dog is crying because she's a brat. High five? No? High five?
Well, yeah, it's not the best CG, but you can get over it and watch it. It's actually still a fun movie. The one thing I gotta say though is I'm a little disappointed overall in the ending of the movie. Like, you play through and it has a semi-decent build up, you know, to what they, I guess, are planning to make the big, like, oh my god, like, ending, but it doesn't go that way, and you feel like it just cuts off. Like, what did you feel about that? It was so weird.
I think it's intentional, obviously, that it cuts up that way. It just didn't feel like a complete movie to me. It felt like almost like an animated short, right? An animated short's like really, like, it's sweet and you enjoy it. And sometimes there's a good ending, but sometimes it just feels like, oh, it's a short. Just felt like that. It didn't really feel like it was a complete story to me. It didn't feel like there was like a character, what's the word? She didn't go over some kind of hill to change her character.
No, she didn't have any major conflict that, like,
other than fighting with the people in
that made you feel for her in any way. She was kind of irritating of a character, and you did want her to succeed at one point, but not enough. And she didn't have any point where it felt like it was
development.
a major issue for her. Like, you felt like things are just flying by as far as her trying to learn magic from this lady. But she acts like it's an eternity, but you don't see her age at all. They indicate that it's not a lot of time that passes.
No, and I think maybe like the character development was done between like the people she lived with. And I don't think every character, like every story has to be about character development, but I think with Miyazaki himself, like his movies are very based on strong women like getting shit done, essentially. Strong women who have these like challenges that they face, but they overcome them.
Yeah.
And so I get it. She's a kid. She's an orphan. It's not quite the same story as what he would normally do. But when it comes to a female lead in that way, I just wish that there was like something more to her, because the whole time these people are being kind of shitty to the little girl. And so she starts to do like voodoo, and she starts to try and cast spells, and like it's just like, yeah, they probably deserve it and it's kitschy, but I kind of wish that there was more of like a development for her. You know, she fell in love with this band that she really liked their music, and she finds out that the band is connected to the people that adopted her, and then I guess her mom or whatever, but it just didn't feel like a complete story to me.
No, not at all. And I did feel a little cheated too. Like I did like the cat character that they put in this, but it's very much a ripoff of Sabrina.
Yeah.
To me, like the black cat that talks and knows about spells and all this stuff.
Yeah,
like,
but that's a common trait for witches is the black cat.
Yeah, but in this scenario, like the young kid communicating with the cat, trying to do things and having that kind of weird, not quite mother figure there, it just reminded me a lot of that, I guess, from when I was a kid watching that.
Yeah.
But the movie overall, I would give, I don't know, I'd like a 6.5. I wasn't a huge fan of this. It's fun to watch. It's like a short movie type of deal in a sense. Like it's got some funny moments for sure, but I wasn't super into this. What do you think?
I would say the same. I'm not gonna like be like, please go watch this, but if you want to watch it. You know what I mean? It's on HBO Max, so don't pay for it if you got HBO Max. You can watch it on there. But yeah, that's all I really gotta say.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go right to the next movie we watched, which I actually thought was semi-decent, and it's called Porno, and it was on Shudder, and it's a little over the top. I do warn you, obviously, there's some nudity in it. It's not like hardcore porn or anything like that, but there is a decent amount of intense nudity. Like there's a lot of wieners, there's a lot of boobs and stuff like that.
There's a lot more wiener stuff
crazy.
than there is boob stuff, and the actual sex is like limited. There's like some like, is this like weird that we're like sex and masturbation? But there is a little bit of that, but it's mostly like stuff happening to genitalia.
Yeah, basically like it's these young kids and they're working at a movie theater, and I guess it's like a Christian owned theater because the guy that owns it or manages it is like kind of a little intense, and they're basically watching it for the night. They're gonna clean up and do all that stuff. They get to like watch a movie at the end of the night and clean up shop and roll out, I guess. And basically the boss leaves, they get to watch a movie, and accidentally they find a secret door that leads down to like a forbidden abandoned theater that used to be there, and it's like a smut theater. And they find this film that's like got these demonic symbols on it, and they decide to watch the film, and it releases a sex demon, right? Like, or a succubus or whatever. And the movie's like really ridiculous and over the top. Like it's just like this lady naked and these guys with knives and in their underwear with these weird like, what are they called? Like these weird robes they got on and stuff. And yeah, so they watch this film, and the characters are weird. Like these kids, like the one is like I guess like in the closet kind of deal. And you don't really know right away, but they kind of like unveil that as it goes on. The one girl, I guess, likes him. Then there's another guy who's like kind of a pervert, and his friend that just kind of tags along.
The ginger kid is from High School Musical, the musical, the series, and it's a Disney show, so it's like drastically different from the character he plays in there, and like it just makes me laugh to think that he got hired for a Disney show knowing he's in a film called Porno. Like, you think they looked at his resume and was like, this is fine?
Yeah.
Like,
especially because when you watch this movie, it's obviously like a B movie and it's over the top and they have some intense gore and like the whole, like, okay, I'm going to spoil something that's a little over the top. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens, but at one point this guy's nuts get exploded and like they're trying to, I guess, like, I don't know, like tie something around the guy's, D&Bs to help stop the blood from flowing too much so this guy doesn't like, bleed out right there in the theater type deal. And it's ridiculous and oh man, it was so gross. And then obviously at one point they have a spell that has to happen and this one guy like cuts his dick off to, I guess, churn it with some virgin blood, to like do this weird spell. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, so these guys end up having to fight the succubus, and then they find out a bunch of other stuff that's hidden within the theater along the way too, that like, this bum that they had problems with outside of the store and inside of the store, like he apparently used to own the previous like smut theater and things like that. And then the one young kid, he's like an over the top like guy in recovery, and he's also like really religious, and he's trying to kind of shun them from doing a lot of things, especially watching the movie in the first place. So it's pretty like ridiculous when everything plays out and they all have to kind of fight the succubus, what happens to each individual character, because just about everybody one way or another gets victimized by the succubus, and the succubus can change forms and stuff like that. But what did you think overall of like the gore and like the, I guess not like fight scenes, but them kind of having to fight the demons?
I like a good silly horror movie. This was definitely that, but I think it was a little too over the top on some things. Like it could be over the top and like still funny. Some of it was just,
yeah, so many wieners getting mutilated.
Yeah, it was like pretty graphic, but I also just wish it was a little bit more comedic. Like they try to be funny with certain things that I just didn't think hit the mark. Overall, though, I think it was, like, the concept was interesting. It gives me the whole, like, The Ring vibe. You watch a movie and then you're gonna die. But this is, like, with a porn. And I think the concept of being, like, a bunch of, like, nerdy, like, virgin-esque kids or being, like, very, faithful, like, church kids with this is, like, a really interesting and fun concept, which is why I wanted to watch it. But I mean, it wasn't like the best movie. I think there's way better movies on Shudder. And side note, I would love to do an episode where we just do all Shudder favorites, because I have a lot of fucking good ones on there. And I think it's probably one of the top streaming services, in my opinion.
Now, there was one good joke on that movie that I remember right away. And at one point, like, he made a "your mom" joke, and the kid like yelled back, and he's like, "Hey, my mom's dead." And the dude's just like, "Oh yeah, well, prove it."
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening? Like, why do they, like, it was so ridiculous. I did laugh for that. I mean, it was really stupid, but when you see it and hear it, it was pretty funny. Basically, this movie I would give like a solid, maybe a 7. I'm definitely gonna say it was better than Earwig and the Witch. It's a little funny. It's got a couple moments. But the gore it's well done, but it's like, it's pretty gross. And it's not like a long movie or anything. It's just something silly to watch and kind of laugh about with your friends. And some of it's pretty cringy, but it's decent. It's not bad. Not bad at all. What do you think?
I think it could have been better. But I mean, it's a fun watch. That's all I don't really have like a rating for these last few. I don't know, 6.
Really, a 6?
A 6 for both of the last 2 movies I watched, I guess.
Yeah, I would give this one a 7 because this one had like a story that I felt at least went from start to finish.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it had
no.
a decent ending where they do the typical like we survived and they get to walk out epically or whatever and do their little like off-screen
Neither has
stroll
replay value for me.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
And I think that's what brings it down. Because last
Neither
week
of
we
them
watched
have replay value.
that one movie, The Psycho Gorman Kill. I watched that shit again. That shit was funny as hell.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, shout out to Psycho Gorman for last week's episode. That one was pretty funny, and we've been trying, I guess, because that one was kind of silly, and I enjoyed the jokes and the corny humor, that I wanted to watch more of that, and I didn't get that with this movie at all. I thought that this one just didn't quite make it, but it was all right. I enjoyed the couple jokes throughout it, and I enjoyed the practical effects that they did. It wasn't any like crazy CG. It was a lot of like practical effects of like the demon ripping through someone's stomach, or the guy's nuts exploded. You don't see them explode or anything, but the aftermath is pretty gross and all that, and them like carving the guy's chest up, and a couple things like that are pretty cool to watch. I like practical effects. That's especially why I like the movie from last week. That one was like all practical effects except for some corny 80s kind of CG where they like green screen the background or whatever and do some stuff that was kind of silly. But this one, yeah, I'm gonna kind of end this one with a 7 for sure. What else do you want to talk about? There was something else that we did start. What was it?
No.
Yeah, we just started.
We started watching Disenchantment.
Yeah, the 3rd season of Disenchantment just came out, and we started to watch that, which so far is pretty good. It's been a while since we've talked about Disenchantment, but this 3rd season is still pretty funny. We're 2 or 3 episodes in,
We're
I
like
think.
3 or 4. I heard there are gay mermaids, and so I am here for I think it's a mermaid. It's gay mermaid experience, so that's why I'm here.
A gay mermaid experience?
Yes, and I'm ready for it. I love Lucy, and Elfo always has like the best lines, and I don't know. I like this show a lot. Obviously, it's like from the creators of Futurama and stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like they use a lot of the same voices.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
And
have
style,
to look
obviously.
into it, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them are familiar voices that we've heard in a lot of their previous works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's some voices from The Simpsons as well, but
No idea.
this one's pretty funny, and it's basically where the king has been overthrown. The son is now the king, but he's kind of being managed by the evil witch lady and the guy with the 3 eyes. And the daughter and Elfo and the demon, they're underground, and they run into a bunch of little kind of like elves, but they can't really see. And her mother is down there. And so it's pretty weird. Some weird stuff goes down.
Hold on. I went to look up some of the voice actors on it just to look, and Stan the Executioner, which was just on the episode we were just watching.
Yeah.
He's just an executioner, is Noel Fielding, cannot remember how to say that, from freaking Great British Bake Off. The dude with the long black hair. He voices.
Oh, it's old Greg?
Yeah, it's old Greg.
Yeah. If you've ever watched The Great British Bake Off, that guy is old Greg.
Yes.
And I just thought it was so weird to see him on that show. But, so he's the guy,
Yeah.
right? The
Like, that's-
one-eyed security guard.
And it's a bunch of like actors. Like I'm just going Eric Andre, like John DiMaggio, all that. I'm going through it, and then I just saw him, and I was like,
That's really, really funny.
Yes.
I think that's really hilarious.
That's
definitely one to check out. We're going to update you guys as soon as we finish that season, for sure.
That's my goal. I want to do voice acting to the point where I just do like stupid little cameos like that. And that's not stupid, but you know what I mean. I want little appearances on like shows, and people be like, "Oh wait, that was her. She did that too." Like, good for him.
Yeah, that
That's amazing.
would be a ton of fun to be able to do voice acting.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll get good at the animation aspect on Procreate as I draw more on that, and maybe we'll do like a fun
Make
little intro or
cartoons.
outro thing, or make a little cartoon that pops up on the screen. that would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But that about covers everything that we have for this week. We have a couple things to finish to then bring to you guys next week, and then we'll have another episode as well of WandaVision to cover. This one's a little big, so we cover this week to week at the moment. If there's any other ones that you'd want to kind of dive in episode to episode, definitely let us know. We'll be more than happy to do that, because I like to sit around and kind of, we in our spare time, obviously, bullshit from episode to episode about how the episode went. And if you guys want us to specify more, we could definitely do that.
I would like to do a full Shudder episode. And that's my preference. I would like to talk, we don't get to talk about spooky stuff enough. We've been doing it here and there. I want a full episode of talking about my favorite stuff on Shudder, because there's some good shit on there, and I'm really stoked about it. And I don't know, maybe we'll get a nice sponsorship one day from Shudder. One can dream.
One can dream.
One can dream. But anyways, if you guys liked this episode, make sure you go on over and like it on the places where you can listen to us. You go over to...
the places where you can listen to us,
YouTube. You can go over there. You can like, you can comment, you subscribe. You can hit the bell thing like people say all the time when you watch their videos on the internet. If you're on Apple Podcast, you can leave us a review on there. That would be cool. I don't know if you could do that on Spotify, but I think you can add us to your favorites list and stuff, and then we could see that, and that's pretty cool. And then if you want to find the ways to listen to us, you could do it directly through our website, which is podcastfortherecentlyreleased.com. But we also upload to the websites I mentioned before. We do SoundCloud, we do Stitcher, we do pretty much everything. And on there, you can also find direct links to shop our merchandise, to our social media, a little bit of information about Joe and I, and just all things Podcast for the Recently Released. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that about has it for episode 57. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And that'll be Podcast for the Recently Released for this week. Signing out. Peace.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to yet another episode of Podcast for the Recently Released. If you want to peep some of our older episodes, we've got a ton of them. Just check us out on podcastfortherecentlyreleased.com. We've got merch, older episodes, links for other ways to listen to us, and more. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Don't let your meatloaf. Stay safe out there, guys.